Warmer in here.
It feels so much better, I'm telling you.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Was this anybody's first cave, like, ever? I forgot to ask that. No? Okay, cool. All right. There's one thing I want to check out. Oh yeah, hey look, he's still here. Do you guys want to see a really cute little tiny bat? You really, I'm not gonna show a lot of these are yelling. You guys can come close as you feel comfortable. She's cute. He's so tiny. He's a little baby. So I'm saying it's a little baby, but that is a full-grown bat. That's a tricolor bat. So if you get into bats and you start looking at videos online, you can actually confidently tell what type of bat this is if you look at the side. See his wings, how he's got that kind of brownish, pinkish strip, and then his little wings are black. The tricolor bats, the way you can tell them, they have 3 colors. But also too, they're super tiny. So they're the ones that you have this, oh, if you have that reaction and you see that strip on its wing, it's probably a tricolor bat. He weighs about 3 paper clips. Yeah, and you guys can come over here, because I kind of got the, if you guys want to see him better, I kind of got the money shot over here. He's in hibernation, so you're not going to bother him. It's so cute, actually. See your little face, how cute. So that little dude can eat. One thing about the tricolor bats, they're a lot tinier than the female bats. That's actually pretty common in nature, where the females will be bigger than the males, and that one's super, super tiny. So we'll see a couple that I'm pretty sure females, they'll be a little bit bigger. It's just So I like to hang out in this room for just a little bit, because this cave has a really cool story. Whether you want to do, I could give you guys a whole entire geological tour on this cave, and it's just as interesting as the history. But with Cascade, I love hanging out in here because if you guys look around, the floor in here is so smooth. This is not common cave terrain. This is a completely commercialized cave. So everything you guys are looking at geologically is natural, except for the stalagmite. That is, but commercialization of a cave is just infrastructure. You've got walkways, all the bells and whistles, electricity, things to make it more comfortable to do a cave tour. But with the commercialization of caves, you've got people who, if you buy land and there's a cave on it, you go, okay, I did not know that until I worked here, but you own a cave. So you have a really, actually pretty interesting history of people privately owning caves, just like you would any other business, and they would do all kinds of these weird, bizarre things to get people to come into their cave. And Cascade actually kind of has that little same kind of flavor going on. So with the floor being smooth in here, the people who owned this cave before it was part of the park, they actually smoothed all this out and utilized this as like a communal space. So one of their big ticket things to get people into the cave, apart from cave tours, was they actually did square dancing events in here. So they would put a band back there. You can tell the acoustics in here are fantastic. But I'm talking like in the 20s. That family put electric in this cave in 1925.
Wow.
So that's actually really impressive considering the time that was. Eastern Kentucky, Appalachia, half the population didn't even have electric at that time. And from my understanding, there were even people who would come to do cave tours because you could have came here and saw electric in this cave and then went home and not had electric at your house. So it's pretty cool.
Wow.
But this room is called the dance hall because of that history. So we still do cool stuff in here. We do weddings in here. We do cave in movies, which is really cool. So if you guys come back around October, we put a big projection screen back up there, and you bring a chair in, and it's like $7, $10, and you come watch a movie in here. And the bats are going nuts. You'll be watching Hocus Pocus, and the bats are like, it's actually really cool. But so we do kind of honor that tradition of using this space for more than just cave tours. But I'll kind of get into the geology a little bit deeper in the cave. But one thing I do like to touch on too, where I'm calling this a cave, a lot of people, whenever you come to Carter Caves, you look at a pamphlet and you're like, oh, Carter Caves, plural, where are all the caves at? But if you read literature, you're really only gonna see a couple of caves that you can actually go into. And when you think about it though, this area is riddled with caves. Absolutely, we have the perfect topography for caves. We have limestone underground and a forest on top. That is all you need. That is the secret sauce for caves, at least in Appalachia anyways. So really, to have a cave, if you guys are hiking, there's 20 named and mapped caves on the park. There's more than that just haven't been named or mapped, I can tell you that. But if you're cruising around, you just see like a dark hole, it's probably a cave. And if you see like a depression in the ground, like a sinkhole kind of starting, either it's a cave or it's gonna be, because that's kind of how these entrances to these caves get started. But really, you just have three qualifiers. Is it natural? Can an adult person fit inside? And can you experience total darkness? But so this cave is completely naturally formed. But I just like to bring that up because there's so many caves. We're just very blessed that Cascade is absolutely massive, so we can do tours on a commercial level because it is so big. But does anybody have any questions for me before we cruise on? Okay, very cool. Okay, so here's the thing. All of us cave guys have our niches, things we're really good at. If you have back questions, I got you. Hiking questions, I got you. Crawling questions, I got you. Bugs, I don't like spiders. That's just something I've kind of had to learn to deal with this job. I don't know. I tried, it's kind of like ignorance is bliss, if that makes any sense. I know how to tell the really poisonous ones, but I don't know what kind of ropes are for, that's the rigging I was talking about for that cave-in movie. So just for perspective, if you think that's something you'd want to do, the screen is basically yeah. We just put two speakers, that's all you need. So this is my little friend. I'm like gonna be so sad the day I come in here and do a cave tour and he's gone. He's been here, he's one of the ones I was talking about that's been here since before Thanksgiving. So this one's full on in hibernation. But there's gonna be times when we come in here and he's just gonna be gone and I'm just gonna have to find a new shtick to talk about besides bats. But that's a tricolor bat. I'm trying not to put a lot of light on him, but the tricolors are your heavy sleepers. You're really only gonna encounter about 4 types of bats around here. But your tricolor, they're the first in, last out, heaviest sleepers. So probability, these are the ones most common to see. But yeah, so when they're in hibernation, just a little perspective, you don't know a lot about bats' hibernations. They boot their bodies down and they slow their metabolism down to the point their hearts will only beat a couple beats per minute. Versus when they're awake, it can be up to 1,000. Wow. So this dude is in power saving mode. He is not even in this world. And for him to wake up, it's actually a very time consuming process and it takes a lot of energy. So for them to even fully wake up, it would take probably 20, 30 minutes for him to actually get himself out of that kind of comatose state. But yeah, they just hang there. They upside down, born upside down, they give birth upside down, and they will die upside down. Wow. So if they're not cruising for food, that's where you find them, big chillin'. But he's a plump little dude.
That's awesome.
Do they just eat insects then?
Yes. So just one thing I do like to share with small groups, because you guys can do it, turn around and just look back. I feel like it's a totally different perspective into how big this room is.
Yeah.
Because seeing it when you come in, it's kind of I don't know, it just feels like a different experience. But that room is so big whenever you look back. A lot of room for activities. Alrighty guys, so we got some stairs coming up, so just be careful.
Cave-ins that you have to like clean up, like rocks still coming down?
So as far as like actual cave breakdown,
yeah.
So the thing with cave breakdown is you can see it coming from so far in advance, and it's never really on parts of the commercial tours.
Yeah.
Now there are parts in the cave that possibly might have some breakage and stuff, but we don't touch anything unless it's gonna hinder people coming in here. But in my career, I've never had to come in here and pick up anything.
Wow.
Oh, this is kind of cool, you guys. I don't get to show everybody this. I'm kind of nerding out, enjoying these winter tours while I can.
Awesome.
So this right here, this little area, do you guys see all that, the coloring and texture?
Oh, yeah.
So what's kind of cool is if you look at that, that actually is evidence that at one point in time, you had clusters of bats that would hibernate here. So you've got that staining there that's called roost staining. So not all bats, like the tricolor bats, where they're by themselves. Some of them will cluster up in these big pods. The Indiana brown bats that are in this area, they do that. I hope we get to see some today. But they'll pod up in these big, you're talking 30 to 50 bats that probably could fit right there, maybe more.
Wow.
But that staining is from them being in hibernation, and you know, your body still functions.
Right.
And then also too, they'll leave something behind called etching. So limestone's super easy to dissolve and kind of carve out. So their little hands will actually leave these little teeny tiny holes, and that's called etching. It's just from them hanging on the limestone in the cave. But that is super old, really, really old roost staining. So what that tells you is at one point, I'm thinking way before that family was doing commercial tours. When people commercialize the cave, they do things like make inches wider, which messes with the airflow, and the Indiana bats are super finicky. So the theory is probably whenever they started commercializing this cave and widening passageways and making it easier, the bats probably were roosting a lot closer to the door, but then they've gone actually deeper in the cave now. But that's just the theory, but that makes the most sense. That's super, super old etching though, and roost staining. That's pretty cool.
Wow, that's cool.
There's a little bat right here. Okay. So, I like to stop here for just a second. This is kind of a jest stop, but the reason I like to stop here is because where you are on a commercial tour, I am a big advocate on trying to get people to go wild caving because it is actually a really cool experience if you've never done it. And I feel like a lot of people have the wrong impression of it because on YouTube you just see people squeezing themselves into these crazy situations, and that's really not what all caving is. But Cascade is a perfect beginner cave because almost everything in here is optional. So, because some people really are claustrophobic, and that's okay. But I feel like you at least should give yourself the chance to try because you might be surprised with how much fun you have. Because you guys already have checked the box that you're inquisitive people who heard about a dark hole underground and want to go check it out. That's pretty much what caving is. But down here, if you kind of pop down,
Oh, yeah.
this is the crawl passage. This is completely optional. Like I said, you don't have to do this, but it's called the maze. So what we do is you go back here and you just get lost. Not literally, you can't. But that's kind of the joke is I could just turn people loose right here and just let them have the best time. Either you're going to loop back around and come back out the way you came, or you're going to go outside. So I also think that's pretty cool. This is going to take you outside. It's mostly hands and knees stuff. So you're just kind of arm crawling around. You can do stuff like this if you're feeling burgundy and you want to get on your belly and scooch around with more, go for it. But you can just pretty much hands and knees crawl all the way through. And then when we drop down into this lower level, you'll see these little dark holes on the, really close to the ceiling. That's windows from this. So you can be crawling up here and then poke your head down and be looking into the next room before you make your way outside. But that's just a little bit of the caving in Cascade. There's also stuff where you're walking, getting wet and all that. But I just like to share this because if you're inquisitive about it, you should try it. Down the stairs with the lights dim, it's a really nice experience. Just kind of imagine you're going down to a movie theater. So if you need the handrail, go for it. But there is a reason. It's very nice to come down here like this.
So did you do one of those crawling tours yesterday? We saw you were
Did you
covered
see
in
me
mud.
yesterday? Oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah, in
yes.
the parking lot.
Actually, so remember me making that comment? That's kind of why I was talking to you guys about all the holes in the park.
Okay.
That was kind of fresh on my mind because yesterday we went and just climbed in a bunch of holes to see where they went.
Is that what you did?
Yeah.
That's awesome. It was just you and a couple other
I
guys?
went with we have a grotto in this area.
Oh, okay.
So I went with them.
Awesome.
love coming down here in the dark. It is just so cool. And this is about as close as you can get safely to get down the stairs to kind of imagine what this cave's like when no one's in here. Because when we're not in here, there's no electric. We kick the breakers. So this is about as close as you can get to imagine what it's like in here. Because you're always going to have that light coming into this room from that water.
Yeah.
This room's called the lake room because there's a big, giant, huge lake in here, you know. But the reason that I bring that up is because this room has a little bit different, it's got a little bit different stuff going on than other parts of the cave because of that opening. So on a geological standpoint, that's going to be like your twilight zone. That's going to be the only spot, if you're ever in a cave, that you have any kind of plant life, ferns, moss, anything like that, it's going to be on the outside of this because it's the only place in the cave that's getting any sun. Here you don't have that because the creek's flowing out of the cave. But also too, whether it's daytime, nighttime, the sun or the moon's always going to reflect off that water, so you pretty much can always see something. It might be a little tiny skip of light, but it's something where you really can't do complete total darkness in here. But you're watching that creek flow downstream out of the cave. So one thing I've learned, and I like to share this with people, so if you guys are ever hiking and you see water and you just see it disappear.
Yeah, we
And
did
there's a
yesterday.
lot going.
Where did it go? Like,
Yeah.
That's the fun part of this area. It's going to a cave.
Yeah.
Might not be a cave big enough a person could fit in yet. It's going underground, it's going into a cave. Does it pop back out? Does it not? So you've seen this creek actually quite a bit. It comes back through the cave a little bit over a mile. So it's cruising this way, goes through, flows out. That's actually James Branch. So you saw this also, this creek, whenever you were driving over here and you drove across that bridge. You saw James Branch trucking on down to go underneath that bridge because Cave Branch, the creek in the park, meets James Branch and they form hybrids right there. So you see this thing kind of pop out and in. But I like to bring that up because especially like down at Smoky, if you guys went to Smoky Bridge, you just see water and you can hear it and then it just whoop.
Yeah, that's what we did.
Where does it go? Who knows? That's the fun.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna turn the lights on now.
Oh, wow.
do you ever have people that sneak into the cave from like entrances like
So
that?
here's the thing. Okay, so those are called back doors, right? You can't put a gate on that. You can't do anything to it because of the creek. It'll either wash it out, and if that doesn't happen, it's like a catch-all.
Yeah.
Most of the time, people are actually pretty respectful of the fact that this is a federally protected nature preserve in sight. So for the most part, people are pretty respectful. But then if they're not, the whole federal thing kind of helps.
Scares them away a little bit.
Because it is a big deal to come in here without permission. I'm not going to say it's never happened, because it definitely has.
But it's not
But-
really that big of an issue.
Yeah, it's not anything that's really too prevalent, and the pros of having that opening there
Yeah.
definitely outweigh, that. But it does flood in here for anybody who's curious. But I will say, Cascade is probably about the safest cave you can be in this park, because you can just go up the stairs. But the water does kind of rise and fall. The highest I've ever seen it was right below this walkway, so I could still walk on the walkway, but the entire room was full of water. Like you could barely see that opening where the water was shooting out. The highest I know it's ever been is up on these stairs. Not while I've ever been here, but I do know it's gotten that high before. Typically though, it'll just cover that sandbar. But where the sandbar is kind of exposed right now, it is actually a pretty cool visual, because if you look up on the ceiling, those are your stalactites. That is the biggest collection of stalactites in the entire park. That is over 200. It's actually kind of like one of the hallmark things to do and see at Carter Caves is to see this, just because of how incredible the amount and the sheer size of them are. But when you have stalactites, these are classified as dripstones. We'll talk about all this stuff in another part of the tour. But when you see stalactites, typically you'll see stalagmites down below, because the same water droplets that form the stalactites will form the stalagmites down below. But if you see those little depressions, that's from the water dripping off the stalactites and hitting that sandbar. You're never going to have them in here because that creek will just wash away. Any little bit of deposits of any of the minerals to form these things happens, it'll just get flooded and washed out. Plus it's on sand, so it's not very stable ground anyhow. But we're going to go a little bit deeper into the cave. But just a couple of things that I do like to share with you guys in here too. So where I talked about, this is a limestone cave. And that in this area, we're basically just rich with karst. Here's also more breakdown back through here. And the thing about cave breakdown is I feel like it looks kind of sketchy, but dude, this stuff is
Yeah, it's
solid as a rock, literally. But this actually goes to more caving back here. So you can actually squeeze back through there, and it actually comes out the other side.
What?
That is your Superman squeeze. So it earned that name because you have to go with a shoulder drop and your arm out to be able to fit because your both shoulders are too broad. It's for no reason. It's completely just for your ego because right here's the passageway. You don't have to do it.
Did these fall off from the ceiling? All of these?
Yes. Now that is incredibly old. That is like no. That happened so far long ago. Same thing with that stuff over there. That was not even whenever the family owned this cave. That was already done. Like for perspective, the last evidence of any cave collapse or cave breakdown in the park was the early 80s, and it was a part of Saltpeter Cave that we don't even do commercial tours of. Like it was deep in the cave. But right here, I love to stop here with you guys because we're a small group and I usually don't get to. It's kind of like, hey, check it out, let's see it. But this passageway is called the avenue. So when you look down over here, you basically wild caving. There's no infrastructure, it's completely undeveloped. So you can navigate it a couple different ways. You can either go straight and just walk, not fall in the giant hole, you're nailing it. Or if you're kind of feeling crazier, you can do what we call going under the avenue. So you're basically utilizing the creek and you're following the water. You will get wet. It just depends on the creek as to how wet. Are you talking chest deep or are you talking waist deep? It just kind of depends when you tell them what you're doing. But the reason I like to stop here too is because when you guys look at the shape of the ceiling, it might feel a lot like the dance hall, and that's because it's the same type of passageway. These are called phreatic tubes. The reason they're called that is because this entire cave, at one point, they're called phreatic caves. Formed under the water table, that's all that means. When you look at the water table, it's basically just a line, so you have what's wet and what's not. So the phreatic zone is your wet zone, so completely submerged in water, and your vadose zone is dry, no water. And the water table is basically just a line. So this cave was formed below the water table. So while it was being formed, it was flooded with water. So when you're in a cave where you have these big rounded tube ceilings, that's your first indicator. The other things, room for activities. You can move around. This cave is huge. If you go into X cave, you can barely do this, but you have 90-foot ceilings because it's a vadose cave. But when you guys are walking around and hiking, I like to share this with you because that shape, I want you to remember it because you'll see little holes in little different cliff sides, and if it has that shape, this would have looked like that at one point. Because all caves, they gotta start somewhere. They don't start out in these big, massive, huge passageways. They develop. So you'll see a little tiny rounded ceiling, or a little tiny rounded tube-looking hole. But oh, that's a baby avenue, which I think is super cool. Final thing here, guys.
Is that a bat?
That's a bunch of bats.
Oh, it is?
So the reason I'm not putting a lot of light on them, those are the Indiana brown bats. Those are the ones I was telling you about up top that like to pod up and cluster, but they're also really like sleepers. They're very finicky, and they're also endangered. So these are the bats that are seriously affected by white nose syndrome. So if you don't know what white nose syndrome is, remember I told you I'd tell you when we're looking at bats. It is a fungus that grows in cold places, aka a cave is like prime time place for white nose to grow. But the reason it has that name is because it's kind of white and fuzzy, and it grows on their faces. So it'll get on their snouts and their little noses and stuff. And the reason it's a big deal is because it's so itchy and irritating. So they're in hibernation, like I said, and it takes a little bit for them to wake up, and it takes a lot of energy. Well, they're waking up prematurely because it's so itchy. And they'll actually get agitated to the point they'll take off flying because they're trying to get it off their faces and basically groom themselves. So if a bat wakes up with white nose syndrome during hibernation season, it's 100%. The bat's going to die. It's a death sentence. Because their fat reserves, they depleted all of their energy they need for winter. There's no bugs to re-bulk back up, so they just starve to death. But the big deal too is like with these, you see how they're potted up? That's nothing. That is nothing. That is, as far as Indiana bats go, that's like probably what, 5, 6 bats. But you go into a cave like Saltpeter Cave, and it's got ceilings like this. Imagine this whole entire thing is just covered with bats.
Oh, wow.
Thousands and thousands and thousands of bats. I'm talking 10 to 14,000. So you can imagine a disease like that, kind of like COVID of the bat world, spreading all over the place, killing. So that's why we don't go into those caves right now. We completely leave them alone. Here, it's really weird they're even up here. Consider this a privilege because usually they go way deeper in the cave. It's actually kind of weird that they're even here. But yeah, I just like to paint that picture too because Saltpeter Cave looks like a shad carpet right now. Those are called hibernaculums. If you hear of a cave where there's thousands of bats, Carter Cave is one of the 10 places in the world that the Indiana bats will go to hibernate too. So that's also a huge privilege for us.
So you said we can't go in because of the endangered.
Down
bats.
here we do because that's like 6.
But in the other caves, does human interaction affect the white nose?
Okay, so that's debatable. I've read different things, but here's the thing that I know to be concrete. We wake bats up a lot more than we originally thought. So they're already having a hard enough time. We need to leave them alone.
Gotcha.
So do we spread it like on our shoe? Like, is that how it?
That's the theory, is that where it's a fungus, you can spread spores. That's why we do the decontamination thing. Clean your shoes, clean your gear, all that.
So like if you're out hiking and then you go into the cave, you might be bringing it in.
Well, in this area, like if you're hiking on our trails, don't worry about it because we already have it here. But if you were hiking and then you were going to another cave system that didn't have it and they had really stringent protocols for white nose, you don't want to wear the same clothes and shoes. So you want to take your clothes off, wash them, and then maybe Lysol your shoes.
Okay.
But it's really easy to decontaminate. It's just Lysol.
Yeah.
Okay.
But here on the park, you don't have to worry because we already have it. So if you go on any hiking trail, you're fine. So I'm taking you outside, but we are coming into more cave. So whenever you guys go out here, it is absolutely beautiful. This is part of that federally protected nature preserve. And apart from the Indiana bats, which gives it that federal protection, there's actually 2 plants out here as well that are endangered. One of them you'll be able to see. It's a little shrub. It's called the Canadian yew. But it's out here, and I'll show it to you guys. But it's just beautiful. So if you like pictures, it's a good place for it, man, I tell you.
This has been blocked off, huh?
Yes, this was done by the state.
Okay. Oh, wow. Look at that.
Also, too, imagine this not being here.
That'd be amazing, wouldn't it? It's like a movie scene.
I know.
Have any movies been filmed around here?
As far as in the cave, I don't think so, but I know in all field it has been.
So this is where the water came out.
Yeah, that's your opening right there. That's your twilight zone, just from the outside. So we can walk right in and be right back in the cave right there.
Wow, what a view.
Oh man, I'm telling you.
This is awesome.
What I love about out here too is it's just a perfect snapshot of whatever's going on.
Yeah.
Hey, do you want me to take your picture with all of you guys? You want that too, Mom? I don't care. It's not weird. Moms always get, I assume your mom. They always get left out.
Yeah, no, I'm.
Yeah.
So you have to like love your job.
So really quick, guys, that little shrub up there on that rock, that's the Canadian yew I was talking about. So that's one of the 2 endangered plants. Also, too, if you follow that creek down, that's just James Branch making its way back to the park.
Huh.
Out here, though, too, what's really cool is the cave is pretty much always going to be the same. A little bit will change, the water and stuff. But what's cool is like popping out here, no matter what season, you've got the seasons going on. So you get like a little change in the visual. Oh yeah, it is summer outside. Or, oh yeah, there are wildflowers. Yes, it is spring. You guys can just kind of go in and find your spot over there on the flat part. No, we're not going to move along. Okay. Thank you for asking.
Oh, look at that.
Okay, back around and leave. So we'll be going that same way that we just came. But as you guys go up the stairs, you're gonna feel a really significant temperature change, and it feels really good. Where North Cave only has one way in, one way out, it is always 50 degrees up there. Did you get a drink on? Yeah. So I feel like I have to say this as a cave guide. Have you heard what those are called? They're called cave kisses.
Oh, I
Apparently
didn't
you're
know that.
supposed to get a wish. So, you're going to booty back to you. But we're going to go up the stairs up here.
It's just like seeping out of the rock right there, isn't it? Oh wow, check out it. It is nice and warm up here.
Oh, it feels so good.
That's like what? 50? It is 50.
Yeah, it does
that
not
stay pretty
change.
consistent? Does
Yeah, it doesn't change.
Look at that. That's crazy. This is like
Can we walk around
connected
it?
from the top.
So we're going to.
Oh, okay.
I'm just going to really quickly talk right here.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to send you guys on your own little cave and journey. But I like to just talk for just a minute here. So you guys can kind of tell why I brought you up here. A, it feels really good. But B, your cave is like the hub for all the weird, strange, bizarre stuff you kind of see in caves. So these are basically your formations that you guys are looking at, all the weird, strange stuff. If you look at them too, what I love about them here is that all of these formations or pretties, whatever you hear them called, they're basically like clouds. So if you look at them, you might see something, and you tell me, and I don't see it at all. So this room actually is called the cathedral room. The reason it's called that is because of in the middle of it, that's a column. You're ceiling to floor. But the context on the cathedral room is that was described as a cathedral, and the formations down below are described as people praying.
Oh, that's cool, yeah.
If you guys see it, that's so cool. I have never seen it. I just repeat it because that's the context. Me, I had a kid on a field trip tell me that looked like an evil bunny. That's all I see. My boss said a kid told him to look like Mr. Krabs, which I also see. But so that's a little context behind the name. So you're in the cathedral room at North Cave. But when you guys are looking around, I don't get too into it on this because, again, with you guys, I can nerd out all day. But I like to try to make stuff in caves just super simple and digestible. And if you want to learn more, it kind of gives you a nice leading off point. When you're in a limestone cave is really what I'm talking about. When you guys look around in here, you're seeing spikes and icicles and big blobs and ceiling to floor stuff. We'll call them formations, but technically they're called speleothems. Basically just think secondary after the cave is formed. So the entire cave will form, and then this stuff will start to grow. So when you look at it, there's basically two things that you got to think about. What color is it? And what shape is it? That's going to tell you a lot. You don't have to know anything about anything, because all you have to do is just look at it, and if you think for a second, all of this stuff is formed by water bringing minerals into the cave. It is as simple as that. It's just what mineral is it? That's going to tell you the color. What shape is it? That's what the water was doing. So when you guys look at the ceiling, you've got soda straws up there, you've got stalactites. The things that hold tight to the ceiling, I have to say that stalactites hold tight. But those little soda straws, those little pencil thin things that are hollow inside, all of those are formed by your stalactites. They're all formed by water dripping. That's why they're called dripstones. Your stalagmites, like we saw in the first room, the same water that will drip will hit the ground and build up. Those are how your stalagmites are formed. So all just water dripping. And the coloring is just what mineral. In here you're going to have like calcite. So when you're walking around and you see stuff that's white and sparkly and chalky looking, that's your calcite. Back on the back wall over there, that big blob. That is called flowstone. You'll see a lot of that in caves, and it all kind of looks different, but basically just think water flowing in the cave. It's in the name, water flows. But that's why they tend to have these like big bulbous thick things going on, and they've got these strips going down, and because they're also described as frozen waterfalls. If you guys go to Cascade, actually, you'll see one that's like 30 foot tall, and it literally just looks like a creamy beige waterfall. Then you've got other stuff that's kind of cool. If you look at the bunched up stuff on the ceiling over there, those are called draperies. That cave right here. That right there. So if you see stuff in a cave that kind of looks like bunched up material, they're called cave draperies. They're formed a lot like their stalactites. They just have a little bit more of an elegant flow down the side of the cave. So they'll kind of have this like ribbon-like look before they trail off and tip off at the bottom. You'll even find stuff in caves called cave bacon. You guys see that right there?
Oh, yeah.
If you're in a cave, you see something that looks like cave bacon. It's what it is. It's formed by water kind of cruising in on this crack right there. So the water will come in and the minerals are just deposited so thin that it gives it this bacon-like look. You can actually shine a light through it. They're almost always translucent. But basically, when you guys are walking around, you don't have to know the name of all of them. Is to kind of wrap back around while I'm telling you this. All you have to do is just kind of look at it for a second, and you can tell, oh, the water was splashing. Oh, the water was dripping. And it kind of helps put it in perspective what it is and why it looks that way. And the last thing is, for a lot of the stuff to grow, this is very much elementary way, but it's just a good visual to kind of get you in the ballpark. It might not get you to see, but you're in the ballpark. For a cubic inch of cave growth, or if you want to think your thumb, it takes about 150 to 200 years for those minerals to deposit to get that late. So if you're looking at stuff, that little thumb there, literally, it's not perfect, it's not scientific, but it kind of gets you in the, like I said, ballpark, not the seat. But do you guys have any questions for me? Cool, so now I'm just gonna let you guys go up there and check stuff out. Y'all don't need me, a mix of loop. So you guys go on your own accord. If anybody with a flashlight is where I'm on. And then there's a staircase up there. It doesn't go anywhere. But me, I'm kind of yeah. But if you go up there, it's totally cool. I'm like one of those people, I want to go see all the weird nooks and crannies. You guys can go up there. It doesn't go anywhere. Okay, 3, 2, 1. Do you guys want to do it right here in front of this too? Sure. That's a good spot. Okay, 3, 2, 1. Okay.
Neat.
That's hilarious. Yeah, there's a couple on the park. They're not great, but
We'll find them.
I'm trying to get more.
Okay.
1928, that one is verified. That was an electrician that came in the cave a couple years after it got electric. But other than that, just check stuff out. If you have questions, I'll be close by, or if not, hold on to them and I'll get you at the end. But yeah, so we're just making our way out. Okay, so I don't know, I have the other Cascade tours to describe. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I'm so sorry. Hey, listen, this is totally unrelated to this, but Walmart actually, usually it's not around here. All their winter stuff, they have so, I've never seen Walmart so much spirit. I bought 3 packs of gloves, and they were $1 a pack, and then 3 in each pack. Walmart! I got long johns, because I could wear kid-sized, thermal tops. So I got kid-sized thermals for just $2 for a long john shirt.
We're on Walmart right here.
Yeah.
We are.
Charlotte.
Did you hear that?
Dirty mind.
No, that's, no.
Those are udders.
No, oh my God. You just took me back. There was a cave guide last year that kept saying that, and we were like, what are you talking about?
Well, it does.
No, I think that's what she was
Milk 'em.
talking
Let me see
about.
a milk.
I never saw it.
Now you do.
Yeah, oh my God, shut up.
I need Joe to keep it clean in the front.
I'm gonna wait for her.
Got some hoodlums.
Yeah.
Right here's that graffiti I was talking about.
Oh yeah.
Also, watch your head, you're here.
Check that out.
Nice handwriting. Yeah.
Stayed on there for years.
So these little passageways is kind of what I was talking about too. So you see the little tube?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's a new cave
Look
forming,
at those.
huh?
Are those crickets or spiders?
Uh-huh, those are crickets.
Those are the crickets.
Yeah, that's
They
the stuff
look
I was
like
talking about,
spiders.
that you go crawling and they're on the ceiling and you're like, oh,
You think it's full of
friends. My friends are in there. But they're crickets. But that's what I was telling them. I don't know if you guys heard me, but that little passageway back there, that's a little baby avenue. Alrighty, guys. Hello, little friend. Look at that. Really cute. Oh, look at that. Oh, it's a little fat. Tricolor.
Little furry nugget.
Oh, cool.
Here's a booby trap. This is
Is
a.
that another passage?
The
Or?
hole in the ground. This is just a depression that people trip over.
Oh.
So there's a rock there, but then people trip over the
Over the
rock.
rock?
Yeah, like with field trips, I'm like, if you step on the rock, it'll open a trap for
Yeah.
alligators.
Like Indiana Jones stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
Falling down the.
I feel like this whole passageway feels like an Indiana Jones movie.
It does.
Yeah.
I'm
Okay,
expecting
guys,
it.
there's a really low hanging stalactite up here. Please watch your head. These are called headache rocks. It's not bad, it's just, it's if you don't clear it.
Knock some sense into you,
It's,
right?
yeah, something like that. There's a lot of crickets up here too.
Oh, wow.
Because as long as it doesn't jump on my face.
They do that though. They
Do
really
they?
do.
They will
Yeah.
jump on you?
They will, well, if you're in like a small
Oh,
confined
yeah.
space and they start bouncing, it is terrifying. This is a really cool, this right here is called brimstone damming. There's actually a lot of caves that even will have some sort of brimstone in the name because of this. There's one on the park called Brimstone Cave, and the whole back of it, as far as you can see, it's just full of this formation. It's just water coming into the cave and the calcite's damming up and making these little puddles. Some of them are super tiny where it just barely covers the surface. Also, some of them are massive like that.
Probably.
Yeah.
There's more of that Bruce Davy I was talking
Oh,
about.
yeah.
Wonder if what we thought was a jumping spider in the cornhole cave was actually a cricket.
It probably was a
Because
cricket.
it was jumping like
Yeah.
2 feet at a time.
Yeah, we crawled back in there.
Tell me there's jumping spiders. Little scream. Back over there is a lot of granddaddy long legs.
Oh, look at that.
I'm not
They're up
really
in that-
sure why
up
they
in the
hang out up
pool
there. I have no idea. Can you guys see it?
Where does that go?
I don't
This
know.
hole here.
Crawl up and see.
You can't. Can you
So,
flash a light up there? See- Oh, it's,
Oh, it's a.
well,
there's a-
it might,
look
it
at all
might.
those. Come here and look at this.
But that, honestly, I would have a hard time getting up there because I wouldn't want to step on that flowstone. But I would be inquisitive. That's
Yeah.
pretty much the name of the game. That's what we were doing yesterday. Where
Really?
does that go? Not in here, but.
Right, but
Yeah.
if it's not mapped, you'll try to map it out.
Or just see where it goes to. Mhm.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Or see if like, okay, if you get down there and there's a lot of dirt, but you think you could clear it out, is it worth the effort to clear it out to see where it goes?
Right.
Or like yesterday, we were walking off the trail and there were sinkholes all in sequence, not too far away from each other, so it's like, that many sinkholes in that close of proximity kind of almost seems like there's like a trunk
Cave
line or some
underneath.
sort of,
Yeah, yeah. It's almost like connect the dots, huh?
That's literally it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Alrighty guys, so this is our final stop before I take you to the waterfall. So this part in here, this room is called Dragon's Lair, because there's a big, huge dragon that lives in here. You can see it, but there's its head and its mouth.
Oh, yeah.
Cake popcorn. That dragon's super cool, but it's cool not because it's a dragon so much, as that's actually the biggest stalactite in our entire park. So he's absolutely massive, and if you walk down a little bit, he's even bigger. He just keeps going.
Wow,
and
look
going.
at that. Oh my gosh.
But other than that, this is pretty much where we just make our way out of the cave. So one other thing I do want to kind of touch on is that we took the commercial route. But if you kind of look under this little overhang right here, you can tell there's more cave back there. And the break in the handrail also maybe might make you think. We were actually walking pretty much parallel with the avenue. So we just took a different route to get back here. So we could have hopped that gate and walked down the avenue and came out in this exact same spot. So it all was connected, all of it right here. So this is kind of a junction point where however you wanted to do it. Either way, we all go out that door at the end. But yeah, so while we're underground, questions, comments, concerns, anything at all that you guys are curious about that I didn't address?
You did a great job.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so hot dogs, there's more to go. But I'm gonna open this door for you guys and go on up the stairs and just hang out for me, and I will shut the lights off and everything, and I'll meet you guys, and I'll take you to the waterfall.
Are there times of the year where the waterfall isn't flowing?
No, that waterfall stays. Alrighty.
Right now?
What do you like that west of the road? Oh, those there. So like I said, the theory is you're decontaminating food.
Yeah.